Ba-doop boop ba-doop doop. Well, I am live, and nobody's here. Well, that's okay. I'm starting a skosh early, and it is going to be nothing but fun. So, the shot I was well, actually, I should mention my mouse, since I am starting early. It's an opportunity to talk about things that aren't necessarily part of the animation agenda today. We seem to have an area in my office where underneath the wall some unwanted visitors have been, well, visiting us. Specifically, mice. So, I got me some spray insulating foam that is also, I guess you'd say, rodent repellent, and squirted that stuff in there, and there we go. I think we're good to go. So I did want to mention this too. My scrape, my website scrape of SETI Dreams is complete, and actually the GUI based or graphical user interface based softwares that I tried to use didn't really do a great job, and so I wound up using wget, which is a GNU free free software kind of thing, called command line deal. And I tell you what, it did a great job. So now on my own server running right here on my machine, I did some additional cleanup, got rid of some erroneous PHP files and whatnot. And so what I have here is a little different. I thought I was going to have to unpack all the RAR files, but it turns out that the scraper did the whole job for me. So this is just for my own enrichment. I can pick any of these categories, and then what I get is I just get a list of titles. Like, okay, so Bakuman would be a good one. Bakuman is a anime I've always liked. So if I go to Bakuman, then what it does is I've made some changes to the CSS code so that the thumbnails, I think the thumbnails are a little bigger, but then if I mouse over them, I get basically a full screen blow up of it just from hovering. So that means I can sort of check real quick if this is like an image that I want to look at, and then if I click it, of course, it opens up in the browser, and if you zoom in all the way, you can see these images are really big. So there's a number of things I could do to make this more functional, but it's working pretty well. And I once again will say that this is a heck of a site. So color designs, I think they have one for Bakuman as well. Yep, right here. So you can see all the color keys that they use for the show. Isn't that cool? I think that is just a really, really cool resource. There's a bug right there for the which I had to go in and figure out what's going on there. But for the images that are the furthest to the left, they're not actually. They're kind of doing this funky thing. So no big deal. I'll figure it out. Just a little bit of extra code required. But if you're hey Tom, Bakuman is a cool show. You can watch it for free on Tubi. And I'll tell you a little secret that probably most people don't know. And don't tell the folks at Tubi, but in my experience, what I've found, I'm not going to log in right now, but what I've found is, this is our secret, so don't tell anybody this, but when I run Tubi on a browser as opposed to on a device with the app, the commercials don't work. So every time it hits a commercial break, it just blanks for a minute, and then the show keeps going. So that's kind of nice. But Tubi's really not bad. I mean, there's a lot of content there, and my own playlist of anime is pretty extensive. So, but yeah, Bakuman you can watch there. It's about these two kids they're like middle schoolers, and it follows them through high school, and they actually become professional creators of manga, or manga, however you want to say it. So pretty cool thing. Um, it was actually one of the first. Well, it was literally the first manga that I ever read, and then I liked it, so I wanted to see if there was an anime, and it turned out there was, and so I watched that. But it's really a good show, and interestingly enough, this show Bakuman, I guess I can't highlight it. This was created by the same people who did Death Note. I believe. Don't quote me on this, but I think Death Note actually came first. But it's the same team that did Death Note, and this show is completely different. It's not dark. It's not a mystery. It's just a slice of life about these two kids. So it's a completely different tone, which I have a lot of respect for creators who can, just kind of change their skin that easily. It's pretty impressive. So this show is my cup of tea. Death Note, not so much. Not really my cup of tea. So anyway, there it is. Okay, so what's going on with the show? Well, when we last met, I had done the pencil test for the following shot, and what you saw was this slightly awkward transition right there, where it's actually right now, I'm instead of doing a jump cut, I'm doing a dissolve. I'm not sold on that, but we're going to go with it for the moment because the shot's done and I don't want to dink with it anymore. But so this is the final shot. There's a couple things that still need to be fixed, like the lighting. There's a overlay layer that is making right here. You can see this. That's not right. I mean, that's got to be fixed. So, it's not perfect, but it does convey what I was trying to convey, which is that Luca realizes, hey, something's up with Monkey. Let me go back here just a little bit. They hear Monkey. Hey, Monkey. So he goes out, looks up. There's Monkey. Monkey's looking off in the distance, and then this is what he does. He's basically acting out that he can see the soldiers marching off in the distance. And Luca, of course, puts two and two together. So this is the shot we're working on now, which is Luca popping back into the cave, letting them know it looks like we've got soldiers marching toward Gripson, which is kind of a drag since they have to go through Gripson. But anyway, there it is. So that's what we have to do. And I'm going to discard my paint. I don't need that open. Let's go back to Krita. And now the first thing we're going to do is think. We've got a situation here where we know we're going to have these overlays. And I'm just going to call this Mel and Tia. So they're just in the foreground. And now that we have actually we can put the arc of the cave and even an indicator of the moon. We can put that in the drawing, in this little sketch here, so I can turn the background off and everything will be a little cleaner to work with. So let me see. This paint layer right here actually belongs up top and should be turned off. So these are just color correction bits from the original shot that this is derived from, because this is actually a repurposing of this shot. So we had a couple shots earlier that used this basic layout, and so we're going to reuse it. Okay? That's what we're doing, people. Okay, so when I say the first thing I want to do is think, is I want to be a little strategic about the animation. Now, and so what I'm doing is I'm starting with Luca's ending position. Okay, because the likelihood is pretty high that if we draw him in the place where he's going to end up, we can then kind of work backwards. And in fact, actually in the pencil test, I might as well just do this. Okay, so typically in a shot in the show, what I usually like to do is give 1/2 of 1 second of lead in. So I'm going to assume that probably 2 or 3 keys is all we need. So let's just insert a keyframe here, effectively blank keyframes. And now, actually, if this is the landing spot, then we're going to what I'm going to do is this is just for reference real quick. What I'm going to do is go here and here. I'm just going to copy these because let me think about how I want to do this. I think I'll do an ease in at the end. So I'm going to go like this. And then this, you know, working backwards. I'm just going to make this a little small change. So when the scene starts, this is what we'll see. See that? Perfect. Smooth as silk. And we can do it all with a single drawing of Luca. And then he's got a, yeah, it's basically just lip sync. So, hey, Ross. So as far as I'm concerned, our background's done. We just have to put in the overlays of Mel and Tianara. And then, as I said, this is Luca's landing spot. So, it looks like he's going to say, I need to work out the exact dialogue, but it's going to be something to the effect of, it looks like we've got soldiers heading towards Gripson. He doesn't talk quite like that. He's got a higher voice, and he's got an Indian accent, so it is something like this, but not exactly. I have to actually talk this way for this way. I should say way, not way, for just a moment so that I can find the character. It takes me a moment to find the character that I'm trying to speak, but this is what he will be saying. Okay? And so now, while we're here, why don't we actually also create another group, and we're going to call this group MNK. Actually, I'm going to spell it out. Monkey. This is going to be Monkey's PT pencil test. Okay, so Monkey's essentially going to land wherever he's going to land, just a little bit after Luca. So, phew, boom, I'd say right there. So what we're going to do is insert a keyframe, and we're going to do the same thing I did with Luca. I'm gonna work in reverse. So I'm going to put in a sketch of Monkey, and he's going to do what he tends to do, and I'm going to actually move him down a little bit. Yeah, that feels like a pretty balanced composition. Maybe a little bit of an angle on him. So that's his final landing spot. So now actually, just because it's so, for lack of a better term, cheap to do it this way, I'm going to keep working backwards. Okay, and then this, so I'm putting a little bit of a bounce in his landing. So he's going to actually extend a little bit too far and then bounce back. And so then this is going to be a slight ease in, and then maybe one more frame to kind of poke him into the scene, but I suspect that's probably going to backfire because the overall motion is probably too slow now at 8 frames per second. No, it's actually fine. Actually, that'll work. And by the way, now that I'm thinking about it, I want to mention this shot that I just did. I just realized not only does he have a right there, the interior of his mouth is not painted, but also you might notice, the astute observer would notice that the poor guy doesn't have a tail. He's got it on the first frame, but then it kind of disappears. So I'll tell you what, let's actually divert to this for a moment, because I want to show you guys a way in Krita that you could do this tail or something similar that's like really super efficient using what does Krita actually call them? Layer styles. Okay, so bear with me for half a moment while I backtrack. What shot is that? That's 19, 13, 18, 19. Okay, so let's pull up 19. Okay, here's Monkey. We need to turn off this transform mask. Okay, once the shot was done, I moved him a little bit, but if we're going to draw, we need to turn that off because otherwise we'll be drawing in the wrong place. Okay? And also, for the purposes of this little exercise, we want to turn the background off. And I'm going to turn off the clouds as well because they're kind of distracting. Sun or moonbeams, vignette, all that stuff can be turned off. So I'm going to turn that all off. I'm going to turn off this layer, which is a tint. I would say the shadows can remain, so that's fine. Okay. So now the way this worked out, the first, if I remember correctly, oh, okay. I was thinking that on the first frame, yes, on the first frame I actually baked the color in, which is probably a stupid move, but I did. So you guys will forgive me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually just create a new layer, okay? And this layer is going to be tail. Okay, so this is how you do a tail really fast. I'm going to actually trace this tail on the first frame because it just makes my life easier. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to sample this color, and then we're going to use, I would say, this brush, because that's a really bold ink pen that we can make it essentially exactly the size of his tail. See that? So I'm actually going to draw that over there. Okay, do I have my pencil test? I do have my pencil test, so I probably should put that in there because I suspect that there's going to be some indication, yes, of what the tail's supposed to be doing. So that makes my life easier too. So I'm going to insert a key here on the tail layer, and I'm just going to go like this. Okay, so now all the magic is going to be done this way. When I sample or solo this layer, if I go to its layer style, I can use stroke. I don't recommend using this sort of thing a ton, and if you do use it, you kind of want to probably bake it into the layer by flattening the layer once you've used it. But and notably, the effect isn't showing. So I wonder if that's because I've got the layer in solo mode. Yep. Okay. So now let's turn the pencil test back off so we can see what we're doing. So you can see it's got this ridiculous big stroke around it, right? Okay. Now at any time, you can right mouse click, go to layer style, and for some reason, because it's, I guess you might say a render effect, I think is the reason why it doesn't show up when you've got the layer soloed. So no big deal. So I'm just going to turn the stroke down to be 1 or maybe, probably should be 2 pixels. That feels a little small. Let's crank this up. Yes, there we go. It's a little slow, and that's why I said you don't want to add a bunch of layer styles and then just have them sort of like I probably would not want to render with a layer style on. So I'm going to put it as center so that it's actually kind of both inside and out of the layer. Yeah, that's about right. Okay. And it looks like, I guess I'll leave the color like that because frankly, I really should have lightened the ink lines. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to grab the ink lines. I'm soloing the layer. Actually, those don't really look punitively dark. But I do feel like they should be lightened up a bit. So I'm going to grab, usually I do this in reverse too. I go to the end of the scene and then go back to the first frame because I'm about to do a curves modifier and I want to do it on the particular frame that I'm interested in. So, and actually that's probably a bad decision. I probably should do it here because that's the first frame that has the ink lines independently in their own layer. So now I'm going to hit Control M, and what I'm going to do is kind of my usual routine. As you can see, that lightens them up. So what we're going to do is we're going to lighten them up a little bit, and then we're going to punch up the red. So again, sort of vis-a-vis my advice about layer styles, I am not going to create a filter mask because I know the color is going to be fine. And so I know I'm not going to need to change it. And if I did change it, I could do it the same way I'm doing it right now. I could just change it again. So Instead, I'm going to do multi-frame, and what that means is any keyframes that are selected in the timeline will now have that applied to them. So you're going to see it probably think for a minute, do while it's going through and actually destructively adding the effect to every single one of those ink frames. Okay, makes sense? Cool. All right, so now having done that, you can see the disparity between the tail and the ink, and that's not acceptable. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and fix that now, which I'm going to say needs to be done this way. Let's make it fully opaque, but then let's mod the color. And we can just do it, hopefully, just do it visually. Okay. There we go. That's like spot on. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Now, I'm going to turn the effect off. There's no reason to have it on while I'm working. It's just taking up CPU cycles for no good reason. And so now we want to turn the pencil test back on and insert a keyframe, and we can literally just go through and smack the tail in there. It's just too easy, friends. It's just too easy. It shouldn't be this easy. Well, I guess we got a key there. It's whipping down and then around, and then here we just insert this because the tail is now obviously in the rest of the shot. Yep, so now we will then turn the effects back on, and what I'm going to do is save my work because I don't always necessarily trust flattening layers, but now what I'm going to do is flatten this layer, and hopefully what will happen is it'll bake the outline into it. Let's find out. Ah, see? Aren't we glad we weren't stupid? See all those artifacts? Okay, that's classic Krita. That's okay, though. Let's see if we can first just undo it. And it looks like, yes. Okay, so the buffer's flushed. Okay, so here's what you want to do. What you want to do is hit Control G and put that layer that has a layer style in a group. And instead of flattening the layer, you want to merge the group. It does the same damn thing, but when you use merge group, it actually works and it doesn't have all the artifacts. Quite bizarre, but that's Krita. So now I'm going to go back to this particular frame and delete that keyframe because it was already kind of baked in. And now we'll rename that tail. And I think we're good to go, friends. So let's start turning our layers back on. Okay, yeah, the one other thing we needed to fix was that lighting effect, which was a bit bizarre. Let's turn the pencil test off for sure. And where is, tint? Yeah, that's where it is. Oh my gosh. Well, that explains a lot. Okay, I'm actually gonna kind of cheat on this because you might think that that looks like a hot mess and it's insane that anyone would ever have intended that, but I did. The only problem is the white, and what I want to do is just smooth the whole thing out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just do a Gaussian blur. Whoops, grabbed the wrong effect there, folks. I'm just going to do a Gaussian blur on the whole thing, and it's going to be a big blur, like 150 pixels. Yeah, that's probably going to be okay. All right, so might be a good time to save our work. Save your work or pay the price. Okay, it's still a little extreme. That's still extreme. So what we're going to do is, I guess we're done with the tail brush. So what I'm going to do is just sample kind of that color right there and just tone that down. So I still want the contrast, but it's just too much. That's better. Now we're getting somewhere. And I am actually going to redo what I did before. I'm going to hit Control F, and I'm going to blur it again. Yep. Yep. Okay. So, save our work. Oh yeah, we forgot. There was one frame where Monkey's mouth was not filled in. Was not colored. Yep, there it is. Okay, and we can just wing it on the color, I would say. Let's just grab our brushy brush, and don't let me forget that we need to turn the transform mask back on, just so as you know, and then we'll just kind of pick a color that might credibly be a tongue color. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, that's a one frame tween, so it's really on the screen for a very short time. Save our work and render, and we are rocking. Boom. And then we'll just take a quick look at it, make sure everything's working. Looking good, I should say. And then we will move on to the next shot. So, like I said, I'm not really sold on the transition there. I'm suspecting something. I want to look here. Let me look at the tint layer. No, I don't know. I think I'm just going to get rid of it. Well, or not. The effect is jumping out and drawing attention to itself like way too much. So I'm going to go boom, boom, and I am just going to fill this. Because at the end of the day, it was really more of a color correction than a gradient. I really didn't need the gradient. I really just needed to punch up his color, and I think it's causing more difficulties than it's worth. So let's render that, and then I think we're done. Take a sip of my tasty beverage. Okay, let's see what we have back here. Yeah, that looks way better. And the only thing that's bugging me is I'm still seeing a little color variation here on right. Yes, that's what the problem is. I see what the problem is, friends. You see what it is? It's the shadow. The shadow disappeared. We've got a rogue frame sequence where the shadow's missing. Let's turn the transform mask back off. Look at the shadow layer. Let's make this black. Hit the G key. Make sure it's in raw mode. And yeah, right there. Right there. And honestly, this is right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually select this region right here because it's got the correct shadow in it. Control C, and then go to the next keyframe and hit Control Shift V, which is not baked into Krita as a hotkey. That's one I created, but what it does is it pastes into the current frame. And it was there, it was present. Well, I guess it wasn't, but now you can see a little bit of artifacting that's actually egregious. Nobody would ever notice it in the show, but I'm going to fix it anyway because I don't want to be a complete slop hog. So that right there should be erased. I mean, you know, this all goes by pretty quick. Okay. Save. Renda. And I think we are actually done. Okay, so, yeah, we're 30 minutes into the live stream, and we've got this shot completed, which is good. And then we will smack onto the Lucas shot. Oh, forgot to turn the transform mask back on. Boy, I tell you, I keep making boo-boos. Friends. And actually, if we're going to turn the transform mask back on, gee, might we want to re-render as well? Obviously. So last time I checked, we had Tom here, Ross, and a couple others. Who else is here? Who's lurking on my live stream without permission? Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. Okay. Let's keep moving on to the next shot. I think I already saved it, but we'll kill that. And here's what happens. Luke pops in. Or Luca, I should say. I'm going to actually... I'm going to take my old liquefy tool and just... I'm going to stretch that a little bit more. Yeah. Monkey, you know, Monkey's kind of the comedy relief guy in the show to a degree, and we usually like to give him a little more squash and stretch and the like. Okay, so let's go back to Luca. Frankly, this whole sequence is going to be pretty easy because, you know, it's really one drawing that's animated. So, hey, if the storytelling works, that's all we care about, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hide these guidelines. And we could cheat even more, honestly. What we could do is we could steal this pose. In fact, that one's even better. We'd have to make him smaller and reverse him. Jeez, I mean, it would be almost criminal not to try, right? It would be wrong not to try. So let's open 0317. Now, I'm big into reusing assets if I can. So in this case, the way we would play this one, frankly, take the whole Luca layer, copy the layer, jump over here, paste the layer, and then add a transform mask, and then we're going to flatten it. So we're going to say, hey, look, it's all baked in, so what's it matter? So what we're going to do is we're going to flip him. We're going to shrink him, and then we'll have to do a little bit of compensation on his body. You know, extra painting to sort of fill him in the rest of the way. But that is the pose, after all. It really is. So let's save our work, and from an expression standpoint, I'm looking at the action, and I'm basically evaluating what piece of it I would be wanting to reuse. I like this. I really like that a lot. I don't necessarily think that the eye squints are needed. And that's certainly not needed. So I would say we want to get rid of those. Just kill them. The eye blink It probably won't be useful actually because um, it will not be useful. Well, it might when he first comes in. I mean, isn't that? I mean, that is like completely what we need. So we can get rid of all of this. Control Shift X, which is my hotkey for just deleting keyframe. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole sequence and we are going to merge the group. So that's going to effectively flatten the fully colored and already animated version of Luca. That's pretty slick. And now we have to go Shift Alt and take all these keyframes and move them back to here so he lands where he lands at the right time. This keyframe is erroneous, by the way. This keyframe likewise is erroneous. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to, we don't have the transform mask anymore, so we don't have the performance penalty of that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get this where it needs to be. And follow the pencil test. Okay, so the caveat is I'm going to kind of allow, you know what, forget it. This frame isn't needed. This is ridiculous. I can always add an eye blink if I need to. So now we've got this. Oh my gosh, can you believe that, you guys? Look at how quick we were. I don't know, if you reuse assets, man, you can really make it happen fast. Now, there is a bit of a problem in that, I would say. His eye direction is kind of wrong, right? So, let's work with that. And actually, as I'm looking at this, yeah, I'm going to say that this entire bit right here could be liquefied a bit to just dial it in. And I'm going to flip between, I'm going to flip the screen. Yeah. Okay, so you sort of have to squint and pretend that you're not seeing all the garbage that results. But so I'm just making little adjustments here. Okay. B key. I'm going to grab this. And let's use our nice brush. The nice brush, what it does is it gives you a really easy way to just paint a lot of stuff in. But yeah, if you want a thin little line, you can get it. But then you also can get the aggressive coverage too. So it's quite a utilitarian brush. Okay, so now the basic problem is, let's save our work. The basic problem is, other than finishing out his body, we need to change his the direction he's looking. So I'm going to put in a dummy layer. I know this is going to look a little weird, but what I'm going to do is actually go like that, because I don't want to be distracted by his right eye. All I want to do is focus on the left eye and making sure it's pointed in the right direction. Okay? So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to actually select this. You hit Shift and you get a perfect circle, and if you hit Alt, you can then move where the selection is. And that is going to be a perfect selection. Now, if I really want to make my life easier, I might as well go Control X, Control V. And then just for now, put his, and actually, let me check something. Yep, I knew it. Darn it. That's not what I meant to do. I had the wrong layer selected. So Control X, Control V. Okay. So now we put his eye in a different layer, and we can always bake it back down anytime we want, right? So now what we can do is erase that eye. Control Shift A, so we've selected all, and then we'll just sample, hit the F key for the fill tool, sample the background, and fill in his eye like that. And now we've got this, and now we've got the ability to really fine tune, hit the A key. And so now I basically want his attention focused on Mel. So this is kind of a shortcoming of Krita, is that it would be nice. You can't get the resolution to select that. That area is so small. Actually, what would actually work better? Watch this. I'll show you how to fix that. Get around the problem. I am going to take this layer, and actually I'm going to take image. No, what am I going to do? I'm looking for whatever scales the whole layer to the size of the entire frame. And I do that once in a great blue moon. I was thinking that trim to image size actually should do it. That should actually do it. It didn't do it. So I don't want to scale the layer. I just want to... I wonder what happens if I flatten the layer. That didn't do it either. So, sorry guys for that you have to sit through this, but I just do not remember. Okay, there's another way. Here's the other way. Create a layer and hit Control E and merge it down immediately. It still didn't work. Oh my God, it still cropped it to the drawing, and that's not what. Okay, maybe this would work. Let's just make a selection that's stupidly big. That did it. Okay, cool. Because I have to be able to zoom out far enough. This is all I'm trying to do. Okay, you guys can see what I'm trying to do. Pretty straightforward. I just want to be able to see from a distance that Luca's eyes are pointed at Melchizedek. And this is quite useful because actually we could have his eyes darting like that. That would not be a bad idea at all. So if we're going to do that, then let's get rid of our dummy layer. Okay, you can see quite a problem that we have. It's no big deal though. We're gonna work with it. We'll get this going here in half a second. Okay, so what we're going to do is grab the Luca merged layer, and we're just going to paint this out. Okay, so B key, sample that color, and just paint this out. We don't need it. Okay, now watch how we keep these synchronized. All I'm going to do is duplicate this layer, hit the A key on the duplicate, and put it over here. And obviously there's a little bit of cleanup that's going to be required. And then what I'm going to do is actually I was going to marry them together into one layer, but I don't know. I actually think, let me see here. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I would say here is where I'll make the shift. And all we need is 2 credible keyframes because we can always reuse them, right? So look at that. Boom. Boom. Yep. This is so stupidly easy. I love it. All right, Control E. So now I've married the 2 layers together, and now all I have to do I don't know why it turns me on, baby, when I can just it's probably why I like programming. Like, to me, writing code is almost as creative as creating music or doing animation. They're all similar things where you're working at the microscopic level, and then what your viewer, or your customer, your audience experiences is that microscopic work playing out in real time. at full speed. I mean, that's really what all of those things are. Music, animation, and code are all the same. And to me, this is like code. It's like you're looking at you step back and you look at your data or your code base, and you say, okay, how can I be smart here? How can I save some time as long as the result is good? As long as the result is as good or better than what I would have achieved by doing it the hard way, then, why not, right? So there it is. And now this one, likewise, we'll just do a little erasing here off the top. Oh my goodness, that is incredible. That is just beautiful. And so now Luca comes in. And I mean, in the space of a minute, we could always add an eye blink or whatever we want to add. So now what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to make the bold move. I'm going to go ahead and take this layer right here and just bake it down. So now those eye moves are baked into the shot. Okay? But the fixes I'm about to do, I am going to put on another layer. Okay, so let's insert a key, and then what I want to do is hit the G key, sample that color, and we just want to get a shape in here. Remember, TNR is in the foreground, okay? So now it's possible, not for sure, but it's possible it's going to turn out that what I just did here is all I need. This may get me through the whole shot. Okay, A key. So this is definitely going to work. That's fine. Okay, let's hit enter and then hit the A key again. But now I'm going to hit liquefy so I can just stretch this down a bit. Whip it into shape. And then here, we'll just liquefy the whole thing. We'll just use liquefy to massage the whole shape, so that you get this nice organic transition, right? I love it. I love it, people. It's nothing but fun. Okay, and then the only other thing we probably want to do is hit the B key, and let's just go ahead and chew back into it with some outlines. Because this is where he has stopped moving, so our illustrious audience is going to have a moment to, digest what they're seeing. So this is where it really matters. All right, let's just take a look, and I think this is going to turn out to be incredible. And you could, the cool thing is we could take it even further if we wanted to. So I'm going to say, let's merge this. Boom. We'll bake it down. It's all good. And then if you wanted to, you could do things like this. You could say, well, okay, let's, first of all, he feels a little off balance here. So let's adjust that. Yep. We'll just make that little adjustment. And then here, because he's looking at Tianara, we could, since he's going to be talking, we could even do something like this. I mean, why not have a little fun with it? Give him a little bit more life. It costs us nothing to do it. Look at that. And now the whole shot's popping. I started making eyes that dart around. Well, the eye darting, eye blinks, and whatever you do animation-wise with the eyebrows are worth their weight in gold to an animator who is having to work economically. Because you get so much life and production value out of eyes. You just do. I mean, it's kind of amazing, actually. The only thing I would do here to maybe improve this whole deal is I would probably say the move should be preceded by a blink. Normally, that would be the normal case, right? So I'm going to say, let's just grab this. And if anybody who's ever wondered why I tend to work flat, okay, most of the work I've done recently is not flat. In other words, there's a layer for ink, there's a layer for color, there's a layer for shadows. But once I've got the character and the character is popping, which I would argue that Luca is, he looks good. Okay? Once I've got that, I'm reusing the assets in another shot. You know what? Why am I gonna? I really I'm making the point here because I want to give this as an example of why I tend to work more on the flat side than probably most people think you would want to. And this is why, is because it's just so fast and organic to just dial it in, and change things and make it cool. It really is. I can't help it. I feel so enthusiastic. Probably to the point of stupidity. Now I'm going to do one more thing here in a moment to punch this up even further. Remember, Luca is... Okay, and I want to sample that color, by the way. Okay, Luca is, unlike the shot that these assets were derived from, he is now backlit. Okay? So, couple things. Number one, before I do the backlighting thing, I'm going to consider some unsharp masking. Okay? This shot's pretty sharp. This shot's okay. This shot's starting to soften. Now, I'm going to show you guys. This is how you can restore the sharpness. Okay, it's in Enhance, Unsharp Mask. You don't want very much. In fact, in this case, based on what I'm seeing right here, I think 0.5. I mean, this is a really tiny change. Now, you could get away with a lot because it is a one-frame tween. But look at this. See how much softer that is? Now watch. I'm going to hit Control F twice. And look at that. At actual size, you just completely restored the contrast. Now, if you want to look really closely, blow it up at a scale that the audience is never going to see. But if you, as the creator, want to zoom in and go, oh my God, I see this unsharp mask artifacting. You know what? The weak link in the chain is your eyeballs, because believe me, at the actual size you're going to see this, it just resolves to a nice mush. Now here, we're going to see softening again. Look at that. So I'm going to go Control F twice. In fact, I could probably get away with doing it 3 times here. Yep. 1, 2, 3. That's all it took. And look at that. So the point is, a lot of people extol the virtues of vector-based animation programs, and I'm not criticizing them. I have Flash on my system. Admittedly, in OpenTunes or Tahoma 2D, the vectors are pretty crippled, okay, in terms of there's a lot of things to criticize. But the basic, I think that the reason one might extol the virtues of vectors is that ostensibly it makes your characters scalable, right? And you don't get the softening and the artifacting that goes with either mushing stuff around like you do with the liquify tool, or from resizing things. And to be clear, you get equivalent amounts of softening whether you increase the size of something or decrease the size of something. People think that if you decrease the size, it makes it sharper, okay? And to a degree, they're right because of the optical illusion that your eye tricks you into thinking it's sharper. But it's actually the reason why it doesn't make sense if you're a photographer, for example. It never makes sense to take pictures at super high resolution and then shrink them down like for the web. If the final output is going to be the web, or even if it's print, you actually are working against yourself to shoot images at super high resolution and then scale them down. The whole idea that that gives you some sort of advantage is actually a complete delusion. The physics don't support your argument. You're always better to create your imagery very close to the actual resolution that it's going to be presented at. And this is something most people don't understand. The very term DPI is not understood by most people. Like to say that an image is 90 DPI, that statement literally makes no sense. Why? Because dots per inch is a function of whatever the device is that the image is going to be displayed on. Okay? The DPI is a function of the screen or the paper, or whatever it is. Okay? So people use, basically people who aren't like really technical will use the term DPI as if they know what it means, and they usually are using it completely nonsensically. DPI is only a function of an output device. Okay? And I mention this because I've told this story before, but I'll tell it really quick. Back in the days when I was doing live action movies, I would have to make movie posters. Okay, so the poster is really big. It's like 40 inches tall. I don't remember the exact dimensions. It's like 28 wide by 40 tall. Okay, and if you're working at a 300 DPI image, editing it at that at that size, you're talking about a 30 gigabyte file or something. I mean, it's ridiculous how big it is. Okay. And people think, oh my gosh, if you were to work with an image that's 4 times smaller resolution, like whatever, you would think, oh my gosh, you're going to lose all this detail, and you're going to have this problem and that problem because your resolution isn't high enough. Those people literally don't understand anything. Here's why. What you actually want to do if you're creating a movie poster is you want to look at what the movie poster looks like at full size on your computer screen, which is a mere 72 dots per inch. Okay? So in the case of this show, this is the actual size on the computer screen. Okay? What they're missing is that the weak link in the chain when you look at a movie poster is the fact that you as a human being are 10 to 20 feet away from the poster. Point being, if it looks good at 72 DPI full size on a computer screen, then if you scale it up, even though it's going to blur a little bit, if you scale it up to 300 dots per inch so you can print it out, it will look exactly the same to the viewer because they're physically standing 20 feet away from the poster when they look at it. People don't walk up to a movie poster and put their eye 3 inches from it to look at it. Right? So I just tell that story because I've had situations in the past where I've been dealing with intermediaries who don't understand any of this technical stuff, and they think they do, and they kind of have a cow about something that literally doesn't matter at all, and they think it's like a big deal. So the old DPI discussion is always a fun one to have. You're on the bus. Dude, can't hear anything, but I'll catch up with this later. Okay. So I'll put in the chat, A-OK, Darren, we love you. Okay. So we've got Luca, unbelievably. I've been going for an hour, okay? And this shot, I literally been live streaming for, and I think the first half hour I was finishing the last shot. So in 30 minutes, guys, is that right? I think that's right. This shot, we are 30 minutes into it. And the shot is, it's not like exactly almost done, but the hard part is. The hard part was animating Luca. Well, you just have to put in some lip sync, which I'm not going to do now. I mean, truthfully, I'm probably going to cut this live stream a little shorter. I don't think I'm going to be going for a super long time. But, okay, Monkey. Let's take a totally different approach with Monkey. Okay. What we're going to do with Monkey is we're going to, let's do a couple things. First of all, let's jump back, not to this, And I don't want to accept the changes. Okay. Oh, by the way, I forgot something. Luca needs one more change. What we're going to do here on Luca to really punch him up is we're going to add a new layer, and we're going to add a shadow layer. Okay? Because he's backlit. Okay? And we're going to let's do it this way. Let's do something radical here, folks. Here's what I'm going to do. Watch this. I'm going to fill in everything outside of Luca with white. Okay? Then I'm going to turn on alpha lock. Okay, why did I do that? Well, because now I've not only added the shadow, but I've also added a rim light. This is obviously in curve mode. That looks stupid. And when we turn this down to 15%, as we usually do, I'm going to let some of that rim light get hidden, because he does have some shadows that are going to block it. Okay? And this, I reserve the right to have this not work. Okay? But watch this. And let's consider what happens if we put it in overlay mode. So we're going from this. Look at that. In overlay mode, you can it's preserving the saturation. If you go in normal mode, then as it darkens, you're definitely going to lose saturation more. See that? So everything pops a little more in overlay mode for something like this. But look at that. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to insert a keyframe. Oops, sorry, my bad. Control insert, since we already drew into it. Let's get rid of that keyframe. And now what we're going to do is just move this over here. And then we will massage it. Okay, that was wrong. That was a mistake, sorry. A key. I want to do a free transform first to get it in the zone. Okay? Hit enter, then go to liquefy. Okay. So now we can go ahead and just dial this in like so. Isn't that slick? Okay, I see a little artifact down here. I'm seeing it there too. And I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so I can kind of do it the way the Blender guys always do with the sculpting tool. You know, a little bit smaller. Okay, so here, I guess we'll go a little bigger actually, and just smooth that over like that. I mean, isn't it crazy how much production value you can get quickly if you just understand how to, you know, use blending modes and stuff? It's kind of crazy. All right, so there you go. There's the shot. We just have to add lip sync. Amazing. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, thanks, Dave. I might catch the end live before I finish. I gotta say, I'm loving the way this scene is going so far. Yep, it's really coming together nicely. Okay, let's go back to Monkey, and what I was going to say is let's pull up. Actually, we don't need to pull it up. Let's just take a screenshot of that. Okay? And then I'm going to go follow Sifter's advice. I'm going to go Control-Shift-R. So that this is just a reference image, and I'm just using it for the color. And I'm going to go G, sample that color right there. And now I'm going to look at the pencil test on Monkey. And it looks like paint layer 11. So we're going to call this color, actually. And as always, I do reserve the right to have this actually not work that well, but we're going to try. Okay, Same thing we did before. We're going to go to monkey's landing spot. Okay? And all we're going to do is just draw the shapes. We're just going to draw the shapes. Okay? And now I'm going to say, for what I'm seeing here, I don't think it is sufficient. Whoops. I don't know what that just happened there. Control M. So what I want to do is I want to darken him a bit. I don't want to go too far because he needs a he needs to be shadowed in front as well. So I don't want to go too crazy here. Let's go with that. Okay, and now we're going to sample that color and hit the B key. I'm sorry, the G key, because we're just drawing shapes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the alpha lock at the drawing level, not the layer level. So that I can just draw in the shape of monkey. Okay, so I'm not happy with that color either, so I'm going to grab the similar color selection and kind of make a, well, similar change, frankly. Let's go with that. G key, sample that color, Control Shift A so we have no selection, and just go like that. Okay, so that was easy. Now we'll just hit the B key, go back to a plain old brush, and this will wind up being the basis for all of the other frames. All we need is one good drawing of monkey, and everything else is just going to be pretty much liquefy, I would say. That probably, oh yeah, I got to turn the alpha lock back off. It was, because alpha lock was on, it was only going to draw wherever I'm overlapping where color already exists. Makes sense? Hence this outline was a bit weak. Whoops. I am going to actually rotate my screen. And, you know, I mean, if I get the characterization a little wrong, I can always liquefy it as well. Make some corrections. Not a big deal. But like I said, the beauty of this is we really only need one good drawing. And I am going to hit the 5 key to reset the rotation. And I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of hair up top. So then I'm going to sample that color. Probably just a tiny bit darker. Okay. Alright, and now if we want to, we can kind of clean things up a bit. Okay. Let's grab this color again. And okay, yeah, I definitely see a problem here. So I'll just correct that. Boom. We'll just do a little erasing and fixing. And then that's a little aggressive on the schnoz. That'll work. Erase, hit the E key. We'll just erase back out of this. Just clean it up. It's worth taking the time to get the one drawing right because, well, it's the only one we're going to have to do. Okay, his ear, well, I would say, actually, let's just do it this way. This ear is a bit small. And this ear is a bit large. So I'm just going to tuck it in. There's a time to not do what I'm doing right here and to just redraw the darn thing. But I think in this case, it's a pretty simple shape, so we're probably okay. B key. And now we can punch up this outline a bit. M key. And I'm also going to do a little bit of erasing into this. And probably ought to give him both a shadow layer and, well, like Luca has, you know, he's backlit. So there's really going to be two shadow layers. G key, so we need a shadow layer to kind of catch this under here. Obviously, we want to be alpha locked. That's a little problematic, but we can, in this case, compensate for it a bit by just erasing. Actually, let's leave that for half a second on the other hand, because once this is brought down to 15%, we're actually probably okay. So, oops, that's not supposed to be in erase mode. Okay, and I kind of feel like I want his shadow to be slightly darker. Okay, and then this is going to be the other thing, which we're going to do the same thing we did for Luca. We're going to hit F and fill that with white so that we can then alpha lock it, put it in overlay mode, and I'm going to go ahead and I feel like that's a little bit much. So the only thing that's kind of egregious here is, whoops. Yes. Yeah, we got some nastiness on his ink lines. So B key in erase mode. Let's just fix this up. So I'm not quite sure how I let that sneak through, but that's okay. Took what? 8 seconds to fix. So we can turn these guys back on. Save our work. Okay, now we've got the basis on which to do the animation. But there is one caveat. If we want to use the well, liquefy, but the actual name of the tool is the transform tool, Control T, which for me is actually the A key. So Krita is reporting incorrectly that the hotkey is Control T because it's not. But okay, what I'm getting around here to trying to say but not getting around to saying is that once we have these multiple layers, we can do manipulations with the transform tool to the group, and it'll add keyframes to all of the layers. That creates a problem, in a sense, because the pencil test already basically has the motion baked into it, as you can see here. Therefore, it's important that the pencil test not be in the group. So there we go. I just moved it up to there, and we'll turn the opacity down so we can see what we're doing. Okay, and then the other thing is, each of these layers must have at least one keyframe. So animated keyframe there, animated keyframe there. As you guys can see, we're working backwards. And now we'll even make our life easier working backwards by simply taking these frames and copying them back. Like that. Okay? And then these frames here, of course, Monkey's not supposed to be there yet. So now he just pops in, but he doesn't match the pencil test. So we'll go back to frame 12, grab Monkey, sorry, wrong thing, hit the A key, hit liquefy, and we're going to just stretch Monkey down here. Ta-da! And all of these keyframes are going to get modified for us. Here, remember, we did a bit more squash and stretch. So I'm going to shrink this down a bit and allow him to get stretched up to there, and there it is. Now we can turn off, actually we can delete the pencil test. And believe it or not, in an hour and 15 minutes. So literally 45 minutes. This so far we got. I want to be careful here, not to waste energy extolling the virtues of working fast, but it is fun. You gotta admit. You gotta admit, it's fun to have a creative idea of what you're gonna do in a shot and be able to just spit it out that quick. Look at that! Isn't that awesome? So we just have to do the lip sync on Luca, and now we've got to get the silhouette basically of Mel and Tianara into the shot. Now, it is worth considering that maybe we don't actually need to draw Mel and Tianara in any kind of detail at all. I'm just thinking here. Is there really any reason why that's necessary? Let's add a new layer, and before we get too crazy, remember all the focus and attention is going to be on, you're going to be looking at Luca and Monkey. I guarantee you. That's what the audience is going to be looking at. So why not just do Tianara and Mel as silhouettes? And we'll adjust their colors here in half sec. But if this works, and I can already tell that it's going to, then we're going to be able to knock out this whole shot in. Oops, I was in erase mode. Sorry about that. I feel so silly. We're just going to have to do the lip sync. That's the only thing that's still going to be required. Okay, so now I'm going to just kind of go like that. Kind of get an indication of maybe of Mel's ear. So I'm having to think about the structure of his, his body. We're looking at him obviously from behind. But I mean, geez, if it's clear, if the storytelling is clear with a silhouette, and it creates less of a distraction from the character who's the focus of the scene, then why in the world are you going to kill yourself drawing the character super clearly, And boom. So now, I mean, I kid you not, friends, other than the lip sync, I think the shot's done. It's just kind of crazy. Yep. And now what we'll do is we'll take this paint layer and experiment with adding some chromaticity to it. I would say I'm going to go ahead and do that so that I can then use the hue shift to just circle around the colors and see what feels good. Okay, so in other words, right? So that you could do all of this, just the hue, and I have to say that for me, something between blue and brown feels pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this down and say, let's just sneak a little bit of color. Yeah, I mean, generally with a silhouette, you want it to be pretty muted colors, but I do find maybe sneaking a little bit of chroma into it can kind of work. And by the way, in this case, also, there's no reason why we couldn't consider doing a little bit of a blur on these two. Something like that. Now, that might be too much. But yeah, just a little bit of a blur. That's a good looking shot. And we can always change our mind. We can always, I think there's a strong argument, actually. I have to admit, there's a strong argument to be made. Yeah, I think so. Let's bring it down a little bit more. I like that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and render this and put it into the show. So this is going to be 19, and what we need to do is Control R and change this to 19 and 19. And frankly, I'm going to go ahead and render all 80 frames because whoa, stop everything. Ah, my bad. Whew, thank you, Krita, for warning me. It's not supposed to be 19, silly. It's supposed to be 20. Probably somebody out there in the audience is freaking out and going, Dave, stop, stop. You're going to overwrite the other shot. Okay. Let's just go ahead and put that in there. And actually, let's do one more thing, too, before we render it out. Let's add these two layers because it looks pretty dark, I will admit. But this is consistent with what the earlier shots that were the same, you know, situation were. So we probably want to cut it into the show that way and see how it looks. And if we determine that it's too dark, we've got that real change of context when we cut to monkey, so there's no reason we can't go ahead and make it a little bit brighter. So, and we don't have to decide that right now. So now what I'm going to do is grab episode 3, shot 20, render 80 frames. I said I'm going to leave it as 80 frames because I honestly don't know how long Luca's lip sync is going to last. Okay, so we're going to pop that in there. We're going to change this to disable resampling, and then we're going to compare. You know, now Luca's a lot brighter here, but that's because he's facing out of the cave, right? So this is what we're comparing to. So let's pop a marker right here. I'm hitting the M key. And then let's pop a marker here so I can just toggle between them. I would say it is true that the I'm thinking what we're going to do is we're going to let's switch back here. We're going to get rid of, we're going to keep the tint in there, but we're going to get rid of this one. This doesn't help for this shot. So there we go. Okay, so the only other thing we have to do really is deal with Luca's lip sync. So let's go to Luca and we'll put in a layer called MTH for mouth. And we're going to keep this real simple. And by the way, what is this layer? I need to see what this is. Okay, this is backlit. Or backlight, I guess you'd say. Technically, the mouth should be under that. Just for the record. I am wondering, though, why? Oh, that's right. His shadows were baked into him. And I'm feeling like that is slightly aggressive. So I'm going to roll that back a little bit. And then look at my, well, I don't need to look at my storyboard. He's going to come in. And let's just go. So we're in the mouth layer. Let's insert a keyframe. And I'm going to use my nice brush and shrink it down a little bit. Okay. We'll be adjusting the color of this. Oh, come on. Seriously, Krita? Sorry, guys. What just happened was I go to drag, and I think, yeah, I thought they actually dragged into the wrong layer, which would obviously be a pretty egregious happenstance. Okay, so I'm going to grab this, put it there. Move that there because obviously he's in motion. This is going to be, we're doing anime style lip sync, so this is going to be almost closed. And he's already done moving, so that means we can repeat the cycle. Actually, we can't repeat the cycle because he moved. I mean, technically we could. We just have to hit the animate tool and move things to where they need to be, which is fine. So B key, smack that there. So this is a bit of a kludge. Special circumstance, friends. Because the guy did move. This keyframe obviously can be deleted. And then this will be an insert. And now what we're going to do is we're going to select all these keyframes and then get the color dialed in. So this is going to be a little bit lighter and a little bit of chroma. Yes. Oh, that looks perfect. Okay. And undo that. That was stupid. Oh, wait. I didn't realize multi-frame was selected, so I'm going to hit redo. Did it work? It didn't work. Phooey. Well, maybe I can go Control F. Will that apply? Yep, it worked. Okay, cool. That applied it to every frame. Perfect. It looks like there are soldiers marching towards Gripson. Ta-da, done. The shot's done. I did it. Hour and 15 minutes. For what's essentially a 5-second long animated shot. Dang, that's pretty good. You don't get those kind of economies every day. So, here it is. Let's go from here. Monkey. Goes out. There's Monkey. We zoom to the last shot we did. Monkey is giving his report. Looks like there's soldiers marching towards Gripson. Sweet, huh? Now, we could punch it up a little bit more. And by the way, notably, this is not a 10-second long shot. Okay, I'm going to do a couple things here, actually. Let's go back to Monkey. I want to just have a little fun here. Number one, let's sample that color. Number one, let's put in a little tail action. So first of all, let's add a layer, call it tail. Maybe we'll want to use the layer style and maybe we won't. I'm not sure yet. Okay, so what we're going to do is he comes into the shot and probably right about here we're going to grab this brush and do the same thing we did before. Make it about that size. Okay. Actually, I'm going to Control Insert. I'm going to make a copy of that and go like this. One thing I like to do with Monkey, I know this is a little weird, a little hard to understand maybe, but what I'm trying to do is whip his tail into this. He does this thing where the tail essentially speeds down to a point and it's like the vibration of it rattles to the end. You'll see here in half a second what I'm talking about. Get it? Okay. So I do like the idea of using the layer style. So I'm going to grab that layer, put it in a group, add a stroke, do the same thing I did before. This will be 2 pixels. Probably fully dark on the center, and the color is going to be a little bit gentler than. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Actually, that looks really good. So grab that, and let's take this group and merge the group. Okay, and so now we'll call this tail. And so, and then we're gonna give him a chirp as well. By the way, it looks like there's a soldier. Yep, right about here. For our purposes, let's move the tail down out of the group, and I'm doing that. Multi-image frames. No, 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 no. It wasn't. It's not intended to be a strobe at all in the sense that you're talking about. All I'm doing is I'm saying. I want to explain this more clearly. When his tail's in this position, then all I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I don't want to use the onion skins. I just draw the next pose where I know it's going to be, and then erase the rest of it. And then you just see the animation propagate out to the end of the tail. That's all that's supposed to be. Okay? So now I move the tail out of the monkey group so that I can then do the following. Right when the tail's going crazy right there, I'm going to hit liquefy, and I'm going to okay. Now we can go to here, and let's get our pencil back. This will all make sense in a minute. Okay, and then here, we're going to do this. Let's cut that out, by the way. And now I'm actually going to expand this even more. I'm going to come down here like this. Okay, that's pretty awful. But remember, it is a one-frame tween, so we've got a little bit of latitude. We can get away with this probably. That should not look like a smile. Sorry. So now let's grab our nice brush. We can fill that in quickly. And then we're going to, whoops, stop everything. Yes, this is causing a problem. Those tint layers will screw you up. So we want to grab that, hit the B key. So monkey is expressing his concern. Okay? Let's save our work. Let's turn all of our layers back on. And I think this will start to make sense. Ready? Looks like there are soldiers marching towards Gripson. Okay. The only thing I don't like is right there. Let's solo the monkey group. And actually, that's not going to do us any good. Let's kill those. Kill that, kill that. Yeah, right here. Hit the B key. This. Hello, what is going on? We're in the monkey layer. Sorry about that. And we've got to turn everything off that could possibly be affecting color. Okay, there we go. We're good. Okay, so when he does the chirp, we really kind of lost his jowl. It looked to me like. And I wasn't quite sold on the expression either. That looks choppy or something. It looks choppy and sloppy. Okay. This is a one frame tween, so it can be a little on the rough side, but oh darn it. Krita quits responding to the middle mouse button sometimes. Alright, boom, 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 boom. Well, I still don't like that. It's because of the shadow. That's what it is. Why is the shadow... Yeah, we need to make an adjustment to that shadow layer. That right there is not working. That's what's causing the grief. We want to take this and push that down. There we go. Now we can see our mouth. There we go. Okay. Much better. Much better. Save. Render. And I think, friends, we are actually done. Pretty sure. Let's see what we've got. Okay. The only other thing I would say I could see is this bit here really should be 2 frames instead of 1. Yep. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make that 2 frames instead of 1. Take a look at it, and if it's good, I'm going to wrap it up. Call it a night. That's a good bit of work done. So let's see how that feels. Yeah, that's way better. Way better. Okay. So then the next shot's going to cut back to Mel. You got all that from a few chirps? Impressive. Maybe going through Gripson's not the greatest idea. But we need food and supplies, and the woods are too thick. So we are marching inexorably and very quickly towards the end of this sequence. Dave, if you were to produce a manga from the episodes, how many pages would come from an episode? You know, that's a good question. My sense would be that each frame, you know, you put in balloons, and I would say you're probably going to take the best pose from each frame, generally. So, you know, this would be a shot, this would be a shot, this would be a shot, and typically shots are anywhere from 2 to 5 seconds. So it kind of depends, but I would say most of the shots would be a panel. This might wind up actually being 2 separate panels. You know, you got a dialogue balloon here, and then you might have I don't know. I mean, you might put that in there, and then instead of having that shot, you might actually just go to the close-up later of Tobias or something. So you might wind up rearranging things a bit, I guess. When you think about visual storytelling, and I'm just spitballing here, by the way. I'm just thinking out loud because you asked the question, right? So I'm thinking it through in real time. But I could totally see where the ordering of the panels might wind up being massaged a bit. The short answer to your question is, if you think about it like a movie where typically, you know, when you get into action sequences, you're capturing all the dialogue would be another measure. I'm not sure what you mean by that one, Tom. But, so if you can clarify, I'll keep blabbing. I could see some rearranging of panels in order to tell the story better, because it might turn out that when you take the motion away, the way you lead someone's like emotion. Um, I don't think fitting the dialogue would be a problem. I mean, I tend to try to keep dialogue sparse. Like this is a static frame. There is no dialogue. Here, you could, I don't know, you'd have to play with it. It would be interesting to do just to see what would happen. And of course, you could massage the dialogue in a webtoon version as well. There's no reason you have to stick religiously to the full dialogue. I'm always into conciseness. If something can be stated in a more concise and hopefully clear way, then always open to change. But so this is an example. Again, thinking out loud. Yes, some speech bubbles can be combined in one frame, and also I think a sequence like this is what becomes interesting. This is where you almost want maybe a vertical format where you actually would crop to the character, perhaps, and then have 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, something like that. So I could totally see where maybe at times, especially when there is no dialogue and it's all about the motion, I could totally see using the web comic format, do what it's strong at, which is being able to use different aspect ratio frames in order to just tell more interesting storytelling. Conciseness is often not what manga or anime is about. Well, I mean, you're talking about two different things, I would say. When it comes to dialogue, that's just it's a kind of a judgment. I mean, it depends on the manga, what they're trying to do. But as far as the big picture of storytelling, I think you're completely right. Anime and manga both tend to, especially slice of life stuff, tends to really drag out. Like I've seen animes where, you've got a 20-minute, 24-minute episode, and I swear to God, 2 minutes worth of stuff happens. I mean, it's just ridiculous sometimes, the way they stretch it out. So, but yeah, for this, like, this pose is probably not needed. Vespar is sulking, so you're probably going to jump straight to this, have him say his line of dialogue, and then perhaps you'd have him saluting. In fact, what you'd probably do is combine his mouth being open with him in a saluted position. So you actually could probably combine those two frames. So yeah, there's definitely things that would wind up being adjusted to suit that format. What made you ask that though, Ross? I'm curious. And when you said a manga, I mean, I guess I read it wrong and assumed you meant like a webtoon. Like you see on Webtoons. I think it's webtoons.com. Is that what it is? It's a good site. It's actually, I mean, there's some really good stuff there, frankly. Yeah, webtoon.com is quite there's some really nice, you know, storytelling there. So yeah, this site. And there's some artists that you do some freaking really nice quality work on this site. So if you're into that sort of thing. But typically, we'll just grab one randomly. The Wolf and Red Riding Hood, and let's just grab episode 16. So you see, oftentimes you do see the format has developed its own language of visual storytelling, I must say. Using the different size frames. It's really not quite the same as a comic book. And personally, I would say I like it better. I like the bleeding off the frame here. You often will see stuff that gives you a feeling of action that is only fully appreciated by scrolling down, which is kind of an interesting thing. But, creatively, I think it's a really cool format. I don't know how good the opportunities are for people to, maybe make a little coin creating this kind of stuff, but it certainly would be pretty easy to create. I mean, there's no problem with that. But yeah, I mean, it puts your brain in a different place. I think it's quite interesting to note that it's the difference between reading a novel versus watching a movie. And it speaks to some of the things I said recently about the way our brains work in the sense that you reach into your emotional memory to create a narrative. Well, the difference when you're reading a book is that you're processing language, written language, and then you create the visuals. You know, graphic novels. Okay, real books. It would be really interesting to do and try, and way more economical, or at least I should think, way less time consuming than animation. You know, but maybe not. I mean, I don't know. You might wind up finding you're putting a little more time into each individual image, but as a development, I will say this. Let me put it this way. I should probably turn on my webcam since I'm kind of talking to you guys here. See my hair all greased back today. I would say this. The attraction of this type of a platform or framework for telling stories, to me, the cool thing about it is the serial nature of it. It's the idea that you have an idea and you can draw it and tell a little bit of your story and publish it, and maybe you can't do it in a day, but you certainly can do it in a week. And there's something about that it clearly works because the comic book industry has thrived on it for generations, right? And Stan Lee proved that by taking a different approach, that you can start with plot and then go to visuals and then back to dialogue. And that's kind of unique. Tower of God, okay. I'll call you Duarte. I don't know how to say Wilhelm. Guillerm? It's probably Guillerm or something like that. But, okay, Tower of God. I'll look that up, like right now, man. Be interested to see what you think is a good one. So I assume you can search and Tower of God. Yep. And so I really like the idea of the serial nature of it, in that you can go from idea to putting something out there that is not just something for people to see, like this live stream. You can tune into it, but it really isn't a complete intellectual property concept that necessarily has much utility, other than for the people that are actually enjoy watching it when it happens, right? And truth of the matter is, I've been trying to apply that thinking to episode 3 of Salt and Light. So hence, while I was working on a complete, finished, proper screenplay, which has been my usual habit, for this episode, I've broken my own rule. And once I got into this sequence, I decided to just let the plot is simple. The plot is the kids take inventory of the situation and come to realize that they need to go to Gripson, and the soldiers are also going to Gripson, and that's kind of a drag. Okay? A Portuguese. Okay, cool. Nice to see you visiting from, I assume, Portugal. And so what I did was I allowed the animation process to lead the dialogue. So instead of working from a screenplay, which episodes 1 and 2 were done that way, I decided to be more fluid with it because I wanted to see if that causes it to feel more organic and maybe allow me to introduce some more humor and just be a little bit more flexible with what I'm trying to do in my storytelling. And this whole bit with Monkey came out of that. This was not in the original idea for this sequence. But I thought, that's cool because Well, frankly, it occurred to me that Monkey was missing. It's like, wait a minute, we've got all this dialogue going on, and all of a sudden, like, what's Monkey doing this whole time? So there's something very, very cool about allowing storytelling to unfold in a serial format. Just saying. And so, anyway, let's check out. Okay, so this definitely has an aesthetic similar to some of your more sophisticated anime, for sure. And this is something I've seen a lot in webtoons. Okay, I'm in the wrong screen. So let me go back to this. Okay, so this is very, anime compliant, let's say. Okay, but you see a lot of this type of thing with webtoons, where very little dialogue, you let the picture speak for itself, and then stuff like this, where this is kind of what I was saying, where it's actually almost like the scrolling through it becomes part of the experience of leading you as the viewer to construct, I suppose, a more complete or sophisticated story in your mind. You know, with a movie or a cartoon, you're making all the decisions, and so the audience's experience is mostly, but not completely, what you're telling them to have it be. Whereas when you read a novel, I think you're creating those visuals in your mind, and I think it's healthier. It's why it's kind of a shame that we watch so much video nowadays and don't read that much, because there's definitely something that happens when you read a novel, puts your brain in an alpha state that is very good for the soul. I mean, it's relaxing in a way that watching something on TV isn't. It just isn't. It does not. It doesn't affect the same areas of the brain in the same way. Not even close. And unfortunately, reading books is a bit of a lost art in this day and age. So, but I will say, I agree with you that the quality of the art is definitely good. The storytelling, so far is a little bit, kind of what was being alluded to about manga, in that it's kind of slow. But I've noticed that's common with these webtoons. They move along kind of one word at a time. I don't know why this one almost feels like they're deliberately wanting you to have to get completely away from this frame before you can experience this frame, and I personally don't like that choice. I would rather see it go directly where the next frame is right there, and you're going through it. That's just my opinion. You can see, it's almost like, if you're going to do it this way, why not just make it a slideshow and give you a button so that you click and it just dissolves to the next frame. Just saying. It's a good thing you're so cute. So yes, this is very, very slow moving for sure. It's beautiful though. I mean, as far as the art and stuff, it's good looking. Yeah, I don't like the way they spread it out so much though. That might be because I'm an American or something. I don't know. It's just my taste. But it would be, you could produce a lot more of this than you can animation. That's for sure. And there's certainly something to be said for the idea of creating something like this, in such a way that the assets can then be used for animation. I don't know if there's anybody who's doing that. I mean, let's face it, what I do here is so, how many people are there on YouTube that are actually doing what I'm doing? I mean, there might be 3, you know, creating a whole, animated cartoon all by yourself. So, but I think about it from that paradigm. I think about it from the paradigm of a independent creator that's looking for, that's willing to explore pathways for storytelling and connecting with an audience that just might be interesting, whatever that might be. And I think that a serial approach where you develop it first as a webtoon and then on a continual basis are flowing that into animated episodes too, I think would be an interesting thing. We saw today, did we not, that once the assets are created, pretty decent storytelling in an animated format can happen really, really fast. You know, to do a 5 second credible animation shot in an hour and 15 minutes is ridiculous. But there it is. There it is. You know, I did it, so clearly it's doable. Um, so now, but getting back to Ross's original question, you're thinking graphic novels, real books, right? So, I don't know, dude. I would have to kind of do the math. Um, if you figure an average of 12 to 15 per minute, let's just do the math real quick. 12 to 15 per minute means that you've got about, oh, come on. I'm trying to get back to Krita. Okay. So you got 10 minutes, so 150, so double that, 300 plus 4 times 15, 16, 460. So you're going to have between 400 and 500 panels if you adhere to a 16 by 9 concept. Now, some people would choke on that right out of the gate. I don't. I think it's a legitimate concept. So the idea would be, okay, I didn't mean to create that from the clipboard. Sorry, guys. I'm talking and not paying attention to what I'm doing. Okay. So let's just, for simplicity, say here's kind of a manga format. I mean, the aspect ratio of a comic book is probably a little different, but it's probably not that much different. So let's just say something like this. Okay, if you're working that way, then it's not ridiculous, especially if you crop to a cinescope aspect ratio, just for, you know, as opposed to straight HD. So you can get 3 on a page, and obviously I'm taking some liberties here because a lot of people would disagree with me that why are you gonna lock yourself into having, you know, multiple 16 by 9 frames, right? Well, that's reasonable. And the reason is this. You're going to go like this, and this is your visual storytelling, quite literally. You know, this is panel 1. Right? And so now if you're doing 16 by 9, then this is what you get. Okay, let's keep following this through. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm just kind of indulging this idea right now, and it's kind of fun, so why not, right? So let's do this, and the size and scale doesn't matter because we're just trying to basically feel what this would kind of break down into if you did it. So none of this has to be particularly exact. There it is, and we'll do one more. So copy that, Control V. Sorry about having to like totally resize it every time. I could have avoided that by planning more carefully. But okay. So there we go. So if you were going to do the 16 by 9 thing, actually let's go undo that and keep this as a single group. So I would presume that you're gonna leave a little bit of a gutter, and so that means that this is essentially your comic book. Okay, that's probably pretty close, and so not ridiculous. You could have a you know, that there. You could probably just like I said, we're just kind of playing with this in real time, and this would be narration in all likelihood. Let's go start making this a little more interesting by allowing a little bit of color to sneak through. Don't like that. So you could actually overlap this like that. Whoops. Okay. We're going to keep rolling with this. This is kind of interesting. Like I said, I hope you guys don't mind. Let's grab that. Alright, so let's just say this is going to be 5. Nope. Probably more like 3 at this scale. Right? Mm. I'm totally making this up, by the way, as I go along. You know, so I mean, this could be quite a cool thing. Oh wait, this is wrong. And this should be probably about 5 for this. So that I mean, to me, Ross, that's what I would be doing. Um, and unfortunately, Ross had to split. But that's what the process would be like for me. I think if I was going to do something like that, and I think it's legit. I mean, I think it's a legit. I mean, the panels look good, right? I mean, there's no reason the show wouldn't work just fine as a webtoon. I just haven't gotten around to doing it, you know. But I've certainly thought about it, and I think it would also be a lot of fun to explore, you know, the creative process of that type of a format, you know, for storytelling. Maybe not with Salt and Light either. Maybe with something different. But I mean, it's certainly as a businessman, it seems like a waste to have this voluminous pile of content that I've created and not try to exploit it in every way possible. And there are probably people who would enjoy a um, a webcomic format who, you know, maybe wouldn't enjoy a cartoon as much, you know? So it does seem like a bit of a waste. Yeah, exactly, Darren. Yeah, so, you know, thanks. I know Ross is gone, but thanks, Ross, for asking the question because I do think it's interesting and I like comic books. I mean, when I was in high school, that's what I wanted to do was draw comic books. You know, I wanted to be John Buscema or, um, you know, whoever, Frank Frazetta, I suppose, but of course, he was more of a painter in terms of when he got really famous. Um, Buscema was he was the guy I idolized. I don't idolize him as much now as I did. Um, some of the veneer has worn off, but obviously his Conan stuff was sort of the quintessential version of Conan. So anyway, I think that's it for me tonight. Yeah, we just hit 2 hours, and it's been fun. But I'm ready to call it an evening. And so, if anyone has any last questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But I doubt like heck they do. So I'll wait like 5 seconds and then say, as I often say,